The last section here, example 3, doesn't have any graphs. Instead of transforming 4 points, we're now lucky enough to only have to transform or translate, shift, reflect, whatever, only 1 point. And the point is given to us right here, 12 comma negative 14. So we need to do that, and we need to do the exact same way. So I'm going to write down my rule for all of these. So my rule for the x first, it says plus 10, so I'll do the opposite. I'll minus 10. Whoops. And then the y, it says a negative in front, so I'm going to have negative y, and then I have a minus 8 and a minus 8. So I'll leave it the same. It says times by negative 1, I did that. It says minus 8, I did that. It says plus 10, did the opposite, minus 10. So now I can take the point, 12 minus 10 is 2, negative 14 negated, so negative negative 14 is positive 14, 14 minus 8 is going to be 6. So if you need to check that out, negative negative 14 minus 8 is a positive 14, and positive 14 minus 8 is indeed 6. So moving on to the next one. What's the rule? So the rule here on the outside is the y's, on the inside is the x. So let's do the inside first. It says minus 8, so I will do the opposite. I'll add 8. And then it has a negative on the front, so we'll negate the y, and then we'll minus 12. We'll do exactly what it says, times by negative 1 and minus 12. So now I can take my point, 12 plus 8, because my point is 12 and negative 14. So 12 plus 8 is 20. And negative negative 14 is positive 14. 14 minus the 12 is 2. So 20 comma 2. So it's pretty easy. Once you write the rule, then you can just plug the numbers in, and the math becomes quite simple. So that's these two, in case you need to copy anything down. I want to just make sure. There we go. And then we can do the next ones. So the rule. Now, this has a negative, but it's already been factored out, so we're okay. In fact, the next one's good too. You can see here, however, there's a negative x. We're going to need to factor out that negative to make sure the x is alone like it is there. Same with this one. There's a negative x here. We'll have to factor out that negative 1. So let's deal with the x's. It says negative, so we'll make it negative, and it says minus, we'll do the opposite, is adding 10. And the y says y, the only thing on the outside is just the 20. So we'll add the 20. Now, again, with the opposite, it says minus 10, so we added it. Why do we not do the opposite of the negative? Well, we are. This is technically a negative 1, and this says negative 1 times x. And what we're doing is we're going x divided by negative 1. So this says times by negative 1, we're dividing. However, when you times or when you divide by a negative 1, it just makes it negative. So we're just negating that. We're making that a negative x. We are doing the opposite because we're dividing. You just don't even see it. And then minus 10 is plus 10. We'll see that division by that number. We'll see that in the next section, the next lesson that we do. So that is this. So I've got the point, which I've now forgotten, is 12 and negative 14. So put 12 in here. Negative 12 plus 10 is negative 2. And put negative 14 in here. So negative 14 plus 20 is 6. So we have negative 2 comma 6. So what is our rule for the next one? Let's deal with the x's. It says times by negative 1 there. The negative 1 is on front by timesing, but we'll divide by negative 1. Now that just actually makes it negative x. But we did do the opposite. We divided by negative 1. And we're doing the opposite of adding by 14. We will subtract 14. So we added 14, but we did the opposite, subtract. Now the outsides of the y's, there's two things. It says times by negative 1, so I'll do that. I'll just write negative y. And it says minus 22, and I'll do that, minus 22. So it says times by negative 1 and subtract 22, check. It says times by negative 1, so I divided by negative 1. It said add 14, so I did minus 14. So I did the exact opposite. So 12 and negative 14 is our point. So you put 12 into here. You have negative 12 and negative 14, which would give you negative 26, I think, yeah. And if you put 14 into here, Negative 14 is a positive 14. 14 minus 22 is going to be negative 8. So I'll just zoom out. And we've got 2 more to do. Now, first thing we need to do with this, I make these square brackets, but we need to divide the negative 1 out. So this divided by negative 1 is x. Negative 20 divided by negative 1 is a positive 20. And there's a plus 10 here. So now we can actually do our rule. The things on the inside affect the x. So it says times by negative 1, so we'll divide by negative 1. It says add 20, so we will minus 20. And again, I've been doing this all along. Divide by negative 1 is the same thing as just making it negative. And on the y's, the outside, there's nothing out here, but there is a plus 10, so we will take our y and we will add 10. So that's it. 12 comma negative 14, I think is our point. So we put a 12 in there. Negative 12 minus 20 is negative 32. And if we put a negative 14 into here, negative 14 plus 10 is a negative 4. So this is our point, negative 32 and negative 4. So if you need to pause that, you can. And now for number 6, y equals negative f. We'll do some square brackets. Again, the x is lot alone, so we'll divide out a negative 1. We'll bring it out in front. Factor out a negative 1. So that just leaves me with an x. 24 divided by the negative 1 is a negative 24. By the way, if you wanted to bring this negative back in, you could. You should be able to get this. So negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 24 is a positive 24. So it's just a good way to check. But this is our equation now. This is our transformation. So I'll write my rule. Now it says times by negative 1, so I will divide by negative 1. It says minus 24, so I will add 24. Now dividing by negative 1 is the same thing as making it negative. So negative x plus 24. And then the y, there's a times by negative 1, so I'll make that a negative y, and a minus 16. So I'll leave that the same. I'm timesing it by negative 1, and I'm minusing 16. So if you have our point, which is 12, negative 14, I put this in here, negative 12 plus 24 is going to be, I think, just 12. And negative 14 into here is a positive 14. 14 minus 16 is a negative 2. So 12 comma negative 2. So hopefully you're getting a sense, a pattern of how this is all going. I do realize that this negative 1 is probably the most difficult part for people. So if you can get that, great. If you don't get it, rewatch some of the videos, but also don't stress too much about it, because the next lesson will make this not a 1. It'll make it like a 3 or a 4 or a 5, and it becomes a little bit easier to see. So don't worry too much, because we're going to be going over it more. So there's everything if you need to pause it. And I think that's it for this lesson.